Hey everybody, how's it going? Aaron Rift here along with good old JM, Jeff Meacham, to discuss the greatest matches in the history of the Summerfest.
No. You're not Jeremy Piven.
Oh,
Come on,
shoot.
what's the name of the show? Come on.
Summerslam.
Summerslam.
That's
There
right, I
you
should have
go.
known by the cups here.
That's right. So Summerslam over these nifty 7-Eleven cups.
Yeah, you have the Rated R Superstar Edge, I have
The
Randy
Viper.
Orton.
And one of them is still relevant. Anyway, that being Edge.
Edge is always relevant.
That's what I'm saying.
He was on Raw this week. In the form of the graphic for Undertaker and Lesnar, but it's actually Edge, the shaving cream, that's the sponsor
That's right.
of SummerSlam.
Edge is there still in spirit.
Anyways, let's talk about
Moving
the
right
greatest SummerSlam matches. We each have our own top 5, and then we'll combine the lists and create a top 10. For me, I want to start off back when I was a kid. One of my favorite SummerSlam matches, probably my favorite SummerSlam match as a kid, was Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect from SummerSlam 91, when Bret Hart won his very first IC title from the Perfect One himself, who was arguably the greatest Intercontinental Champion up to that point.
If not ever. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that was an incredible match.
It was.
The crowd was red hot for it.
Yep.
They were chanting, "Let's go, Bret."
Let's go, Bret. Yeah, all throughout the match.
Mr. Perfect, despite having a bad back, still went out there and performed as only he could. And it stole the show. It stole the show of that SummerSlam. It might have been the best match in 91.
It was one of those things where the old saying, nobody beats Mr. Perfect, nobody didn't hold true.
Right.
He lost, but he went out in grand fashion. He was going to retire or at least take some serious time off, and he went to do a great role with Ric Flair and Bobby Heenan. But that last hurrah he had with Bret was truly so. It's on my list, like I said, but we'll get to my list later.
Okay.
It was great.
And speaking of Bret Hart, moving on to 1992, Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog in Wembley Stadium in front of 80,000 fans. Yep. The atmosphere for that match was just something totally unique. It was in the Bulldog's hometown, and it was the first time that the IC title match was the main event, the final match to close the night. It elevated the title, and it
elevated Bret, certainly, to the world title within a couple months.
Yeah, even though he lost the match, Bret Hart gained from that match because it was just so epic, and Bret really carried it.
Much more so than Davey, because Davey kind of lost the title within a couple months, and then he didn't really do a whole lot until he came back to the WWF a few years later and was with the Hart Foundation. Davey kind of lingered when he won the championship, but Bret just stratosphere.
Yeah, I really believe that this was the match that convinced Vince McMahon that Bret Hart was the guy to carry the company.
Well, because you remember, Davey was not exactly all there at SummerSlam 92, so Bret had to carry him through the whole match, and he carried him and made him look better than he ever could be. And that, I'm sure, convinced McMahon. It was like, yeah, this guy might have something.
Yeah, so that was an all-time classic.
Yes.
My number 3 match here, and this is in no particular order. I'm actually going in chronological order here.
Okay.
The Triple Threat TLC match from SummerSlam 2000. The Dudleys versus the Hardys versus Edge and Christian. This is my all-time favorite match from these teams. I loved all the spots. I think almost everything they did looked excellent. They really were at the top of their games. You even had Lita getting involved and taking bumps. It was just amazing match, and it was also in North Carolina, so it was in Hardy country.
Yep.
The crowd heat was very strong for this match, and just so many memorable moments, and it really defined that era and the tag team division.
It defined what tag team wrestling had become by the year 2000. It wasn't just your simplistic, catch as catch can technical masterpiece. It was going to be a spot fest, especially with these 3 teams involved. And these 3 teams really elevated the tag titles to a place they had not been since the 80s. So for these 3 teams to have I believe it was either second to last or third to last on the whole card, and they really, I dare say they outshone the main event triple threat match.
Oh yeah, definitely. And, a lot of those matches around the time, they would botch a lot of things. Sometimes it would be hit and miss. But with this match, when I remember them doing all the spots, like Jeff Hardy doing the swanton off the ladder, and, Bubba Ray going through all the tables, the stacks of tables. The timing has to be perfect for that. And it looks so good. The match was awesome. One of my all-time favorites.
I agree.
And number 4 here from SummerSlam 2002, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, the comeback match for HBK. You know, a lot of people were wondering, would he be as good as he was in the past? And he proved that not only he was just as good, but perhaps even better. You know, that match with Triple H was an amazing story that was told.
And it really set Shawn on the path to his second half.
Yeah, exactly.
See, he went on for another 8 years when we thought he was done. He went on for another 8 years and had the Hall of Fame career. I dare say, and this is just my opinion, his second half was even better than his first half.
Yeah, a lot of people would say that. And the thing about that match is the psychology in that match. You know, he didn't really take a lot of crazy bumps, but the ones he did, they really meant something. And they played up on the fact that he had a bad back. And, you know, they would do a simple spot like a backbreaker. Triple H would do a backbreaker, and the crowd's like, oh my God, he's going to break his back.
I remember Hunter put him up for this simple little backbreaker, and he just followed through with it, and Michaels just bent backwards in half on the backbreaker, and the crowd was like, oh shit! And Nassau went just through the roof. It was crazy.
Yeah,
it was that intense of a match.
Yeah, I really love that match and that comeback story. And then my number 5 is a recent match from SummerSlam 2013, CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar, which I was there in person for. And in my opinion, that was the best SummerSlam match of the LA era. Of all the SummerSlam matches in LA, that was my favorite one. And right from the get-go, Brock just started throwing CM Punk around. I'm like, this match is going to be awesome. And it was just incredible. In my opinion, Brock Lesnar's best match since he's come back to WWE. But that's just my opinion on it.
We'll see what happens at SummerSlam this year.
So that's my top 5. So you want to go ahead and give your top 5?
Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do have honorable mentions, but we'll get to that in a minute here. I want to see what you put down.
Well, I have 4 of his 5. I've got everything but Brock Punk on my list. The one I added that he didn't was my number 4 out of 5, Bret versus Owen from SummerSlam 94.
Oh yeah, the cage match.
You would never know that these two were brothers.
Yeah.
Except for their last name being involved, because they beat the shit out of each other. And it wasn't even so much that, it was just the fact that they pulled off a technical wizardry of a match within the confines of the blue bars.
Yeah.
They still pulled off something magical that night at the United Center, and it was something where they had the gimmickry and the story of the Undertaker versus Undertaker battle, but this match, which was right before that match, really set the stage for the rest of Bret's reign, and really shot Owen up into the upper echelon more than he already was by winning King of the Ring and feuding with Bret in the first place. This match solidified both Harts and the Hart family as WWF main eventers.
Right.
And it was just such a great story told. The whole family was involved, both sides. It was nuts. I remember watching it on pay-per-view that night for the first time, and it was such a beautifully told story that I'll never forget that long. That's why it's my number 4. Number 5 was TLC that you mentioned. Number 3 was HBK Triple H. Number 2 was Bret Perfect. Number 1 was Bret Bulldog.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry.
About the Bret Hart Owen Hart match. As a kid, I wasn't really a huge fan of it because I always liked the cage matches where you had two guys trying to beat the hell out of each other. And in this match, you know, they were both trying to escape the cage constantly. But Bret later said that the reason they did the match that way is because of the ban on blood. They couldn't do blood, so they had to come up with something to make the match exciting.
And that's the thing. Not a drop of blood was shed.
Yeah.
In the whole... That's never happened in the cage match to my recollection. And for these two guys to put on, like I said, such a technical masterpiece inside the confines of the blue bars was unheard of.
And the athletic performance was really incredible.
And I was amazed that Jim Neidhart got over the cage as fast as he did. Because he was always a big dude. But he just over the top of that cage.
Yeah, everybody got in condition for that one.
The whole party was climbing the damn cage. They had to.
All right, so let's talk about some honorable mentions here and try to make up a top 10. You want to go ahead and name off some of yours?
Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, 95.
I have that match too.
The rematch from WrestleMania 10. Some people say it was better. I don't.
I would say the first one was better.
I say the first one was better, but this match definitely came close. It was definitely up there and definitely a solid, if not 2, then like 1A as far as ladder matches go back then. They were unbelievable.
The end was a little bit screwed up. Sean couldn't get the belt.
Sean couldn't get the belt because he actually mentioned that in his book too. He's like sitting there tugging on the fucking thing. He just won't. It won't have. It was funny. Another ladder match I have on my list is Triple H versus The Rock.
Yes, that's on my honorable mention too.
I think we have a top 10 already set here, dude. Yeah, that match. As much as SummerSlam '98 was about the Highway to Hell and the Undertaker Stone Cold saga, which I'm watching right now on the network right now, I'm watching the Raws leading up to that right now. It's such great storytelling. Triple H versus The Rock was really a hot feud that lasted well into the end of both of their in-ring careers, really.
Yep.
And it started this year, '98. They had a match at Fully Loaded the month before where they were really on top of each other for the Intercontinental match.
Went to a draw.
A 2 out of 3 falls draw. And then the match at SummerSlam, and you can't beat the Garden for atmosphere. So, that was just great.
And the fact is, that match really made both of them. That was like a career-defining match for both guys.
Did. Very few people remember that China actually got involved in the end of that match.
Yeah.
People just focus on the athleticism and the great match itself, but they forget that China cock-shocked The Rock right in the balls. And
they were using the powder on Triple H.
He used the powder Triple H so he couldn't see. Yeah. Brett versus Undertaker, 1997. Yeah. Heart and Soul.
With Shawn as the referee.
Really set the stage leading toward Montreal. And Brett has said this was his last really great pay-per-view match in the WWF, and I tend to agree. It was awesome.
I agree.
And then another Undertaker match I have, a recent one from 2008. Oh, that's not really recent anymore. Versus Edge.
Oh, that was a really good match. I didn't like
the end with the
choke slam
to hell.
It was so lame.
That was
but
bad.
The match itself was really good.
The fact that they had a storyline, they had a feud, and they pronounced a finite end to it by having Edge chokeslam to hell. Undertaker's like, okay, I won the feud, now I move on. And they both moved on. They never really faced each other again, as far as I remember.
Right.
So that was a great end to that feud.
So those are your honorable mentions.
Those honorable mentions. So we had
9.
You got 1.5, so that's 10 already.
Yeah. I wanted to mention Heart Foundation and Demolition from SummerSlam '90, the 2 out of 3 falls.
Yes, sir.
I loved that match as a kid. That was one of my favorites. One of my favorite early SummerSlam matches. Also wanted to mention Austin and Undertaker from SummerSlam '98, the main event.
Highway to Hell, yes, sir.
Undertaker doing the big leg drop on Austin through the table. And,
that was crazy.
And, that match had a lot of build-up, with Undertaker and Kane being in cahoots. Wanted to mention Shane McMahon versus Test from SummerSlam '99. That was an awesome match, and
it was.
That actually made Test a big star until they dropped the ball with him after the wedding with Stephanie went awry.
And it solidified that the McMahons can get in the ring themselves and really tear them if they need to. Shane went to town in this one almost as much as he went to town the next year, which I don't know if you had that on your list, but SummerSlam 2000 against Steve Blackman, where he took that hideous bump.
Yeah, that was a crazy bump.
That was crazy, but Shane McMahon got a ball this big. He always did, and he was good. Go ahead.
Yeah, and last match I want to mention is The Rock versus Brock Lesnar from SummerSlam 2002, the match that really launched Brock Lesnar's career into the main event.
And really set Rock on the path toward
Hollywood.
His first real heel turn in a long time.
Yeah.
And he pulled it off very well.
He was passing the torch.
Yep, he did.
Yeah, so there you go, our top SummerSlam matches. You can make your own top 10 based off of that.
Yep. We got some good ones to pick from, so there you go.
Yeah, lots of good SummerSlam matches. Leave a comment on the YouTube page, youtube.com/NoDQCAW. Let us know what your favorite SummerSlam matches are. And stay tuned to NoDQ.com for SummerSlam coverage and the latest news in the world of wrestling.